Relaxed. Right, guys, welcome back to Take Flight Podcast, episode 59. We are close to the 60 episode milestone. I think we received a special message when we hit the 50 episode milestone, which you haven't shared with the wider community yet, but maybe we'll share that with you eventually. Guys, welcome back. How's everyone doing? P, how you doing?
Yeah, well, very well. Back in Basel, Switzerland. Settled, families well. Karim turns 1 on Sunday.
Round of applause, by the way. Round of applause for Karim.
That's incredible. Lauren's great, and yeah, all good. No complaints. Always good.
Alhamdulillah. Olu, how you doing? How's popping?
Good. Back to reality. So obviously we had the vacation period, traveling. Yeah. Now you're hit with reality and work. And especially, I think this topic is going to be really good because coming back to work and working in that digital era or digital age is completely different. And yeah, sometimes it can be frustrating, but it's good. Can't complain.
Good to hear, man. And Daniel, how you doing?
I'm well. I'm good. Man, a few words. I'm good.
Man, a few words, but the words that you do say are very impactful. I have to say that. And guys, I have to say, I think this is our first podcast we are recording where we are all 30 and above.
Oh yes.
We're like a mature audience now, mature podcasters. Still quite far from the 40s, but we're there. So before we get into the episode 59, I just wanted to say a very quick shout out and thank you to all our listeners, all our supporters. We really appreciate you sticking with us for 59 episodes now. We're going to do a lot more episodes in the future, also interviews as well that are on the way. Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to do a very small request. If you are listening to this on your phone, I'm sure it's likely to be an iPhone, please go on the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. 5 stars would be very, very much appreciated. Stuff like this is really where we get our word of mouth on the episode. We get more listeners, etc. So please go on Apple Podcast, Take Flight Podcast, and leave a review for us. If you're not subscribed, please do so as well. On Spotify as well, subscribe. We really appreciate the support. Continue to listen and continue to share with a friend, family. We love all the positive feedback we receive. So thank you so much for that. So now that's done, quick idea on what this week's episode will be about. We'll be talking about remote work, something that all of us have been getting used to. It's been a big change for some, not so big change for others, but we'll be discussing what remote work means for us and what we see in terms of the future of remote working and how it's impacting our lives and the people around us. So I think with that, we will cue the music and start episode 59 of Take Flight Podcast.
Take off, take flight with you.
Right, so Mr. Daniel Johnson, the man of few words, but those words are very impactful. This is your episode that you're leading today. So how should we start the show?
So in this,
you're gonna need more than a few words to lead the episode.
I bet you I can do it in 20 seconds. So I wanted to. This is based on some feedback from one of our listeners, and I think it's quite poignant and apposite to discuss during the times we're living in. And it's around how do we excel in the digital era. So with COVID hitting globally, it being a global pandemic, how do we all adjust? How do we excel? How do we survive? How do we thrive to retain commercial polish and to remain at the same time attractive to our current employees and to any potential employees for those who may be looking for work? And I think it's important because most of us for the last 6 months have been working remotely, and for those who may have just started a new job just before the working from home kind of mandate was implemented, it can be quite daunting and quite difficult for you to get to make yourself known, to increase your responsibility, to make yourself known to your team, to even get to grips and get to grips of the role. So I wanted to discuss as a four. I know how I am continuing to remain relevant in this climate, but from the three of you as well, of course, we work in different industries. What are you doing to maintain that polish, that attractiveness to your employers, as well as taking on additional responsibility? Or have you been trying to relinquish responsibility. Yeah, Pete, I want to ask you.
What's the question for me?
So before you returned to work, you were, of course, it was back in the office. You was, BAU. When you returned to the office, you were hit with the reality of you having to remote work and in a different country that you were used to. So how did you first find it, having to ease yourself back into work, but at the same time not having that team around you that you would usually have?
Yeah, no, it's I think to be honest, we're all still adapting. And I think the key thing that comes to mind with this discussion is your ability to adapt as quickly as possible. So for me, it was a bit of a unique situation because I came back to work after a break. So I had a renewed energy, and I actually looked forward to sort of inducing that back into the team. But I think one of the things I tried to do is whenever we had team meetings or whenever we had meetings in general, I'd raise my energy levels a lot more than I would usually do it in person. And so it could be felt a bit more virtually. And so it was just really sort of just trying to keep the spirits high and trying to sort of close that bridge of the fact that we're not together, but we can still try and have a productive session virtually. So that I just focused on energy. That was my thing. But I also realized that one of the other challenges was the number of meetings that were being scheduled, right? And so whilst I was focused on having good energy, it was almost like, I wonder how long I can sustain this for, because literally for just a 5-minute discussion, there's a 30-minute meeting being scheduled. So yeah, maybe the short answer to that question is just adapting quick and then focusing on raising my energy levels more than I would in person.
Okay, cool. And Oli, how have you found it working remotely on a more consistent basis? And what do you do to stay relevant amongst your team, your managers and their superiors?
Yeah, so similar to P, and I think similar to a lot of people, when we first heard about lockdown, our mindset was that this is going to be for a short period of time. So I think originally you're just trying to do the status quo. So you're trying to just make sure that your day-to-day job can be achieved and done. But you start to realize that you can't work the same way you were previously working in the office at home, right? Because by you having an office or your computer and being at home, sometimes you feel like you have to be in front of your computer 24/7. So when I first started, my biggest difficulty was knowing when to take a break, knowing when to take a break in terms of just walking away from my screen. So I've got an iWatch. So every 1 hour, it tells me you've been seated for 1 hour. So I'll get up and walk around. Lunch breaks, I'm very disciplined in terms of taking that 1 hour break. Either that's to go for a run, either that's to, if I'm honest, take a power nap. But whenever, I just make sure that I take that 1 hour out. And then lastly is just knowing, okay, when to shut down in terms of working your corporate 9 to 5 sort of job and work on other stuff or spend some time on yourself. So if that's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever you feel is the right time, but knowing, okay, when do I shut off and completely focus on myself and what I want to do? Because especially I think all of us work in a global company where you have colleagues in different time zones. So you'll get a ping or a message at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And just because you're at home, that person knows you're at home, you feel like you have to respond. So I'll say the biggest thing was really just adjusting my lifestyle, because it's okay to do work crazy for a short period of time. But okay, how do you make this sustainable, as this might be a whole year and a half from working remotely?
Okay, cool. And Troy, anything you would add to that? Anything you would give to our listeners as advice, or in terms of what you've experienced?
No, I think we were talking about it a little bit in the intro before. Before we started recording the episode. But I think the biggest change for me is opened my eyes up to how much more productive I can actually be working from home. As you can see, I'm not in my usual setting in Stockholm. I've been working from my parents' home for the last month. If you had told me 6 months ago that
I thought you were in prison. I thought you were locked. You're back up and look like you're in jail.
No, honestly, the way this room is set up, it could
you're
if I didn't have this light in front of my eyes, mate.
He's disrespected, man. Go on.
But actually, there's a reason why we're looking to move house and trying to sell this place, and move to a bigger place.
I'm gonna send you some plants. It's just about the aesthetic. I'm gonna send you some plants. Help you with that background.
Mate, send them through. You've got more than enough in your flat, so I'm sure you can send me this one. But no, honestly, it's just this just really opened my eyes up to the proactivity of working from home. I've been here for the last month, got a desk, and I don't think there's been any drop off in my performance, at least from my view. Both professionally and things outside of work. So that's probably the biggest thing. It's helped me to become a lot more productive. And now I honestly feel I could be anywhere in the world, and as long as I have my laptop, internet connection, and a good light in front of me, I'm good.
Just quickly, a couple things I wanted to add on with this now change of working. There are significant advantages and significant drawbacks. But I've wanted to sort of focus more on advantages, and to Shaw mentioned it. The question I asked myself is, how can I be more productive in this situation where you don't really know when it's going to end or if it is going to end? But I think the thing that the message I want to send to us, and also myself, keep sending to myself and other people listening, is that we have now a unique opportunity, and I said it in my answer earlier, to work towards our energy versus our time. And so this whole working from remotely is debunking the entire 9 to 5, where effectively the model is based on you being fixed in one place, and you're expected to focus for that entire time. And it doesn't take into consideration that people are able to do deep work at different times of the day, right? Some people are night owls and some people work well early in the morning. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, as a company, I want my associates at their best, right? And when can they basically achieve deep work? And so what I found during the day is, whereas you would be expected, someone's looking over your shoulder, you're expected to sort of look busy for that entire time before you go home. If you leave at 5, it looks like you're not busy, when actually you could be one of the most productive persons there. Working from home allows you to sort of create those, like you mentioned, 90-minute blocks, right? And you may decide to take a nap from 1 to 2 because you haven't got any meetings. But that power nap allows you to go strongly again from 3 till 5, right? And you might work again from 7 till 9. So I think people should focus on the concept of energy versus time, and we should now be judged based on our output versus us actually sitting at that desk. Where your base is irrelevant, right? What you're producing should be the focus. So I think that's something which is an opportunity given the situation that we're in.
No, I agree, Pete. And I think that also talks to about perception when you're in the office. There's always the perception that when you're at the office, when you're at the desk, you take limited breaks, you take a very quick lunch. It's often the idea that it's often perceived that you're very busy, you're very hardworking. So how do in these times do you remain visible to your manager and your team? Because of course there isn't that looking around over the shoulder to know, oh, that person's at their desk, are working, or you can see their spreadsheets open and they're not on Google Chrome looking at other things that are non-work related. So how do you stay relevant and visible to your team as well as your manager?
I mean, I don't mind quickly sharing. So I think it depends on the job type as well and the type of role. The role that I'm in now is a lot of projects. So it's things that I can't do on my own anyway. I'm relying on a team, a group of us working together and having close and regular contact. So that's why in my particular role, the way that I stay engaged and the way that I stay visible is the fact that I'm required to have discussions and meetings and calls. Of course, to allow enough time to actually do the work as well. Now, all these calls that I'm having, everyone, there's no spoken rules, but everyone has their video on. Everyone is engaged and everyone's looking at the screen pretty much the whole time. If we have full day meetings, we're ensuring that we have breaks every 45 minutes. So no one sat in front of a laptop for more than an hour. And that for me, it helps me keep engaged. If I know that the camera's on and people can see my facial reaction, I can't be looking like I'm distracted. It kind of forces me to focus. And I think that's actually worked both ways. It's helped me to focus and also kept kept everyone visible, and you can see who's trying to contribute or not. And probably one last comment. With that, I think it's helped because in meetings, sometimes the person who's maybe not as extrovert or quiet but has great ideas can't give much in the conversation because their personality doesn't allow them to. But at least now in a virtual conversation, you can request, or people can put their virtual hands up, or they can give their input in the chat. So I actually think it's helped people become a bit more inclusive in those types of discussions, at least from my personal experience anyway.
Okay, cool. And Olu, what do you do to stay remain visible?
Daniel, can you go next? Because I want to answer that, but I've got a question for everyone that's tied to it. So it'll be good to understand what your views are first.
Okay, cool. In terms of remaining visible, I think I have a good manager who isn't a micromanager, and something that I'm in a team of. There are 4 of us, but we all don't have overlapping work. We're all specialists within our right. But so there isn't much collaboration in that regard, but there is sharing of information amongst ourselves, and we have weekly team meetings. So it's not really remaining visible to my team. But I think when we have team meetings, we always have our cameras on. We speak regularly in a kind of messenger, work-related messenger, not WhatsApp. And with my manager, we have weekly catch-up, weekly one-to-ones, and there's regular communication throughout the week. So I always make sure that stakeholders to the work I'm doing are constantly apprised with any updates. And I think that helps with the communication and staying relevant, because it's not necessarily directly emailing my manager, but it's including him in conversations that I'm having and keeping updated with the progress that I'm making. And that makes you remain relevant, makes them know that you're working first and foremost, but also it just helps you in terms of that communication. So when I do have my weekly one-to-ones, we can talk on things that have been done rather than not trying to catch up on 1,000,001 things. Oli, yeah, you had a question for us.
Yeah, so Daniel, what you've just mentioned is exactly the same for me. I have weekly one-to-ones with my manager, and also we have team meetings where we meet as a broader team to collaborate or talk about what each individual is working on. But one question I had with this visibility, because it sounds like, at least for Daniel and I, a lot of it is like one-to-one with your managers. Whose responsibility would you say it is to ensure that you stay visible to your team? Would you say it's your manager's responsibility to set that up? Or, because I'm guessing some of our listeners might not have managers who set that up. Would you say that they need to take the ownership and set
100% say you should take the ownership, 100%.
Yeah.
Because if you want someone to know information, you should be the one to reach out. Never assume or never put the expectation on someone else for your own growth. You are the driver. You should be the one to set it up. And the time's not convenient, find a suitable and convenient time to discuss that or to keep them in loop with what's being done. Because often managers don't reach out to you because sometimes managers reach out to you because you've done something wrong. It's not necessarily to praise you, it's because of what's going on here. Why have I not heard on this? So sometimes you can foresee that, you can preempt it by keeping them in the loop, keeping them informed, because that's what I think makes a really good employee and helps with that relationship.
Just to build on Daniel's point as well, I think it's definitely driven by the individual on how to manage the kind of frequency and what makes sense. But I think also it's if you're a good leader, then you should also understand and have that want to know what does your team best want, what's their best form of communication, how can you ensure that they're operating at the best as they can be as well. So I fully agree that it's down to each individual, but I think a good leader, a good manager, they should also be willing to listen to their team about what their needs are as well.
Yeah, I'm in a position where we've actually my manager's changed. We have a new manager as of July, and so I guess I speak right now probably on the behalf of those who are joining new roles and maybe new companies. I think the first thing, you're obviously trying to build trust over in a short period of time that can help you downstream. But I think it's being open and asking your manager, what do you prefer? What's your working style? How would you like me to best serve you so you can best serve us in the organization? And I don't know sometimes if we do that enough, right? If we expect perhaps them to ask us the question. But I've been very direct in saying, what do you prefer? How do you like it? And I can basically adapt to that.
No, for sure. Like a part of me agrees with what Shawal mentioned, where a great leader would take that ownership, but we can't all assume that we have a great leader. So you need to take ownership of your destiny. So by you setting up that call, I find that it reduces the fire drills, right? Because a lot of times the reason why you get last minute requests and it's because your manager doesn't really know what you're working on. So by having that weekly touch point, you're able to say, this is what I'm working on, make sure that you're both aligned. And then you can also get insight to, okay, in 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time, we're going to work on X, Y, and Z. So you can prepare for it prior to the time. So, yeah.
I think also one of the things I've noticed, just quickly, just to tag on to that, is I've almost felt like the quality of my work needs to be higher and is higher because of this distance, right? And I feel like when I have the when it is my turn to sort of present or share a particular perspective or analysis, I put everything into it because that's the only time I have almost to help the team understand what I have been working and what I have been doing, right? And so I don't have the weekly one-to-ones with my manager. I think we have it once a month. But I kind of use it. I kind of
wait. Hold on. Sorry. That is
12 times a year.
That's serious. That's serious. No. That's serious because that could mean for like 4 weeks you could be doing nothing.
No, but that's no. Because you're talking about
dangerous.
You're making the assumption that we don't have any touch points. If you're talking about one-on-ones, for me it's one a month, right? Because there's a team of 5 or 6. But we have the regular touch points almost every single day as a team, right? But that's not one-on-one. So what my point is I kind of try to push the quality higher because that kind of show it because people as much as you, it's almost like, again, this perception. For me, I think people should give the trust first until the other person gives you a reason not to trust them. So for example, if I'm not active online or on chat, for example, for the entire day, you shouldn't make the assumption that I haven't been working. Because if I have, if it's not,
I'm gonna make the assumption you haven't been working.
Because my point is when it's my turn, when I'm up, that should show you what I've been up to. Right?
How good are you? How good are you with journals?
How good am I see where the question's coming from, but I don't understand the how it fits. What do you mean?
That was the Porsche joke.
Part of me,
wait.
part of me,
journals. I thought you meant. Yeah. I thought you meant writing journals. No, reconciliation journals.
Yeah.
No. I tell you what though.
So you know how you mentioned, and I'm gonna base this on something that happened today. I find that sometimes your quality might reduce based on the fact that you don't have the collaboration with other people. And you can't just walk over to someone's desk or someone walk to your desk and scrutinize your work as easily as on this virtual world. Reason why I say that is we've got a new exec, and he asked me to send something over to him, right? So I spent all morning putting it together. And then I was like, missed my lunch, and I was like, okay, cool, let me quickly finish this. And I wanted to go for a run, so I sent it, went for a run. And then he called me, he was like,
No. First of all, time out. I can stop right there. Stop right there. Time out. So we should actually do an episode on career tips 101 based on our last 8 years. So this is what I'll say just before you continue. Yeah.
Whenever you send a file,
you don't have to continue. If you have a new executive or a new anything above you, right? There is no sending files and running after. Like you, that don't work.
No. Because we had the update last week. We've had a conversation in our conversation last week, yeah. And I think he wanted to make some pages or whatever. So he was just like, we've talked about this, just put this in an Excel, send it over to me. So we've had the conversation before. So for me, it's just me doing the Excel work for the exec, if that makes sense. Yeah. So he calls me, he's like, yo, something doesn't look right. And I'm like, I'm out already. So I'm already out. So
when it's Excel is peak. Go on.
oh. So I'm like, no, it must make sense. I'm obviously 99% sure that I'm right. Right. So I'm like, no, it must be right. It must be because of X, Y, and Z reason. Yeah, go on.
One quick question. So you know when he calls you and you pick up, have you already started your run? You midway or you finished?
He's finished.
Oh, I'm midway. So I stopped my run. So one advice that I would say to our audience is technology is key. Yeah. In terms of, I personally have my emails and my stuff connected on my mobile phone. So if I'm out and about and someone messages me, I will receive it. So I don't need to be physically behind my desk. I can still respond to quick questions. And I think that makes life just so much easier. Because let's say, for example,
I wouldn't even answer the phone, bro. I'm getting back home first and I'll pick it up.
Imagine I disappeared for an hour, for a run. Then the question is, is Olu really working? When it's like, no, I didn't take lunch, etc. So anyways, long story short, I get back and I look at Excel again. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I'm making changes, etc. And then I catch up with my my manager. So not exec, but my manager. And I'm like, hey, something doesn't look right. Like, we're basically collaborating, right? Which we would normally do if the person was next to me. I'll collaborate, say, yo, does this make sense? We'll go back and forth, the rationale, etc. Anyways, found out there was an error, made the changes and sent and said, hey, apologies, this is the updated version, yeah?
Problem now is you're on the back foot. So now all your work now has to be,
it's gonna have that extra. But I'm saying,
he's looking at you like a liability right now.
But us being remote, obviously, you don't have that level of being able to collaborate with.
That's no excuse. You've had 6 months to get
that's straight, man. That's no excuse. Like, Olu, come on, man.
6 months.
Well, you've had time to do that.
For the listeners,
I think it's a very bad example and a very misleading example to share with the audience. Because in essence, the message I take. Sorry, Daniel. Let me just quickly shoot him, and you can shoot him after. The message I take from that, is that even after what that tells me is you're getting slack in your role, and I know why. You know what I'm trying to say. But what that tells me is even after 8-9 months, however long you've been doing this role, you're still not, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. That's not a good example.
Do you know what that tells me?
Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead, shoot him. Go ahead.
Sure.
I'm sure to go back around and talk about different experiences for you guys.
What it tells me is that rent to rent is popping.
Yo, the deals are coming through thick and fast.
No, I was gonna say that for you, it seems that the run was more important than what you had to do. So you're trying to finish off a task, knowing that you wanted to go on a run, and therefore you just send what was done.
That's schoolboy errors, man. Come on.
Question I got for the rest of you guys. So none of you have made any errors at work?
No, of course. But Olu, come on. In the context in which,
no. It sounds like none of you guys have made any errors.
No. I think Olu, it was the variables you gave us, right? You got a new
Rookie of the year,
a new executive that you're trying to basically impress until you've gained that trust. Then you've shot the file off, and then you've ran. It didn't sound right.
Got it. Context is key, but okay. We'll keep moving.
Can I just quickly say, right? I think I also find that just on Olu's example as well. It's almost like there's an opportunity for us to explain to the organization, this is how I want to basically manage my day. I want to go for runs, and I don't want to go for a run and feel bad for going for a run, right? Like, so when I made the point around I wouldn't check my phone, it's because I'm going for a run, and so we all know it's like if you're going for a run and you check a message and it's not what you want to read, it's going to mess up your run. And so I don't see, as long as your intentions are in the right place and you are working, you're sort of producing the output that is at its highest standard. I think you should be able to run, have lunch, spend, I wouldn't say talk with your friends during the day, but you get my point, right? But there's an opportunity to be flexible here.
So I would say to you, that's the reason I took my work phone with me on the run. So if I hadn't sent that file, obviously I wouldn't have taken my phone with me. So me taking my phone with me was saying, okay, I've sent out this file. I've waited 10 minutes. There hasn't been any response. If he does have any quick questions for me to explain the template, explain the file, whatever, it'll be just a quick picking up my phone and responding versus me feeling trapped in my house and saying, oh, I sent this file and now can't leave for the next 3 hours until I feel like it's safe to leave my house, right? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, go on.
I don't want us to digress too much, but I think there's 4 words that perfectly summarize the situation. Do you know what those 4 words are?
Rent to rent.
Beckley
Property solutions.
Property solutions. That's all anyone needs to know. That's all anyone needs to know.
For our listeners that are quickly that are wondering, what this joke is about, Olu is basically just smashing through his side hustle targets, and he's on hyper growth right now. So look out for him. He's coming. You will see him on TV. You will see him on YouTube. So this will make more sense.
And on the flip side, if you're a colleague or a fellow employee of Olu, expect some more mistakes. I'm joking. He's fully focused. He's doing everything. 10 out of 10.
Back onto the topic. Sure, you mentioned something about collaboration and a lot of work involving colleagues, and you said a lot of video calls. So what is the right etiquette for video calls? Because it's something that we're all having more and more, on a daily basis with clients, with colleagues, virtual coffees, etc. But what would you say the etiquette is for video calls? Or how do you turn up to them?
So I think some people who are working from home, they're like, at least from what I hear, I have some friends or whoever that aren't maybe showering first thing in the morning. They're waiting until the middle of the day or the end of the day, etc. For me, I need to wake up. I still go to the gym in the morning, and it's important for me just to shower and get ready, shave, even if I'm spending the whole day in my bedroom or in my room in my apartment in Stockholm. That's the first thing. So just as if I'm physically going to be seeing them face to face. At the beginning, I was wearing shirts and trousers and stuff, or comfortable trousers. But then after a while, I was like, I feel a bit more comfortable with a t-shirt on. I pretty much wear black, so that's my uniform. Once I got this on, it's like, okay, I'm in work mode.
You said t-shirt. You still got like shorts or trousers on? Or...
No, so now I wear like they're not necessarily work trousers, but they're comfortable work trousers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So kind of trousers that you can lounge in. But that's kind of my work uniform. So once I've got that on, I'm ready for the day. Now, in terms of video etiquette, so I think it's important to have lighting. So I have my light that I take with me everywhere. So when I was even in Turkey, I had this. Here in the UK, I've got it. So that's important. And just making sure that it's high enough whenever I'm talking, not looking away, but really, if I'm trying to make a point, looking directly at the camera. And that's I think the thing that I've been doing, really. I don't know, Daniel, do you think I missed anything?
No, I wear 3-piece suits in the summertime, man.
Daniel, what about you? I just turn up to them whatever I'm wearing, because most of my let me not share that one. I had a call with a client, and this was back when everything was locked down. I think it was April, so I hadn't had a haircut for a good 7 weeks, and I was wearing a do-rag. So I logged into the call with a client, but I was supposed to log on with my camera off, and so I logged on, but luckily the iPad was facing the ceiling. I just flipped it, turned off the camera, and just took the do-rag off. But luckily, the client wasn't on the call yet; it was just a colleague. But no, I just wear, because all my video calls are internal, so I just wear t-shirt like what I'm wearing now, and I'm usually wearing shorts because it's been warm in the house. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I'm wearing jogging bottoms, I'm wearing jogging bottoms. But I'm not standing up, so I just go as whatever I'm wearing, because most of all the calls I have are internal. All my external calls, I very rarely put my camera on, or cameras aren't on for external calls, because people are dialing in from handsets.
Mm-hmm. Camera off and camera on for me is again another energy play. And so I remember our CEO had mentioned one of the ways to save on your energy is turn your camera off. Don't feel like you have to have it on for every single meeting. And it helps, because if you turn your camera off, I can literally put my feet up, and there is people maybe don't realize that when you're having to look into a camera 24/7 and make a point, it's draining. So I do look at my calendar at the start of the day and think to myself, which ones would I basically turn my camera on and off for, to the point where sometimes it could just be me and the other person. That person has their camera on, mine stays off, because that was my strategy going into it, and I know what meetings I have. So I think I think and no one's gonna really say to you, turn your camera on, right? So yeah, so I'm very calculating with that. But yeah, I think I'm like you guys. I started for key meetings in the very beginning wearing jogging bottoms and a shirt. And then I just basically converted into sort of t-shirts. But I'm super comfortable. So it's
Yeah, I think the comfortability is the most important thing. I don't think we should now be trying to recreate office at home. You know, this is our work, this is our personal space, and we're basically inviting people into our personal spaces rather than it being work and just having a video on. So I don't think anyone should feel compelled to put their camera on if they don't feel comfortable doing so.
I think it all depends if it's internal versus external clients, right? I think internal, yes, that does make sense. But external, I wouldn't recommend to any of our listeners to show up comfortable because you're representing that company. And if you're talking to a particular supplier, a particular customer, a particular bank externally, unfortunately, there's going to always be stereotypes or perception based on how you're dressed, even if you're comfortable at home, right? If Daniel comes on the screen with a durag and he's representing Bloomberg, you're going to ask questions, right? Like it's as an external client, but internally, I think, yeah, you can be comfortable, but externally, I would say still be presentable.
And just one quick remark on how game-changing this is. Like if our listeners were to look at Daniel Johnson's wardrobe and see the amount of sharp suits and shirts that this guy has, to have the approach that he's now taken, it shows you how much the world has kind of shifted. And I like the idea of wearing a suit and shirt now and like smart shoes and then going on a 1-hour commute to the office. It's just I don't know how we were living like that.
I really think on one of the episodes we should, because a bit of a side comment, and I'll give it back to you, Daniel. There's a lot trending around how 2020 has been the worst year of people's lives, and I can understand that to an extent. But on the flip side, I also see how there have been, depending on how you perceive things, there have been so many opportunities and so many good things that have come out this year that I think it would be good to sort of touch on and discuss. One of them is what you just said, right? The days of having that tie all up to your neck and you have to do that in the morning. Nobody's doing that anymore, right? So, yeah. Quick question, sorry. Does anyone have desks that raises?
No.
I have a higher desk
At work,
in Stockholm, but not here.
Yeah, I think I need to invest in that. I think being able to alternate between standing and sitting is a good idea.
What I wanted to say is, and I think we kind of steered towards the kind of remote working and this digital era, but I really wanted to kind of close on a few remarks because it is very much, whether we like or not, it's very digital. All of it's mostly online. We're all working remotely via internet connectivity, etc. And for those who, for example, are working or looking to change careers, or even just general rule of thumb that I think we should all be doing is that, one of the greatest impediments of growth is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. And knowledge is something that in every field doubles every 5 years. So if you're not updating your knowledge or upskilling yourself, you'll soon become an expert in an industry that unfortunately that no longer exists. So even in these times, we need to be upskilling ourselves, spending at least an hour a day in things that we're not used to in order to stay relevant, to order to, go with the curve and go with the way that we're moving in, especially in this digital era. So what you first need to do is to modify your thinking and then your behavior, because you need to think it first before actions follow. And even in this example where a lot of us have been working from home, we've had to adapt, but also we've had to modify and change our thinking in order to stay relevant, in order to continue to have our jobs, in order to continue to progress in our careers, because growth and the career progression doesn't stop just because we're now working from home. We should still have those same goals, that same desire, and insatiable hunger to achieve more and to do more. So it's also, at the same time, whilst we're learning, because no one's going to force us to learn, no one's going to force us to increase our knowledge and to learn more. But we must be willing to do the things other people will not do today, so that tomorrow you can have those things they will not have.
Trust me.
And that's what I'll end on.
Yeah, end on that, man. No one say nothing after that.
You just did. Cool.
No, I think on that.
Right, guys. So what a way to close. Daniel, thank you so much. He started the episode saying that he's a man of few words, but as you can tell, the words that he says are very, very impactful. So Daniel, thanks a lot for a great episode 59 of Take Flight podcast in the bag. Thank you so much for your support, for your continued listens. We really appreciate it. As mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, if you have got an iPhone and you're on Apple, go on Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, please. We will love you forever. Any other platform you're on, please subscribe, like, share with a friend, share with an enemy, share with your mom, share with your dad, share it with everyone. We really appreciate everything. Hope you had a great listen, and we look forward to getting back to you in episode 60, I guess. Have a good weekend, weekday, whenever you're listening to us. And as Daniel says, God bless.
If you have any feedback for us, Take Flight Podcast on Instagram or takeflightpodcast@gmail.com.
Take off.